Sometimes as you're chasing your dreams, people will make suggestions like, well, why don't you write something like that for everyone, not just the church? Or maybe you should just get a regular job. Or I just don't see why you can't just make more money. Well, you're going to be misunderstood. And that's what we'll talk about today. Hi, I'm Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com, and I want to talk about something. A lot of times before people start chasing their dreams, they think, well, this is just going to be sunshine and happiness. Everything's going to go exactly my way. I'm just going to be amazed by how wonderful everything is. Yeah, that's not true. That's not true at all. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's really, really hard. Sometimes you think, remember when I had a regular job and I could depend on my paycheck? Or remember when I had a regular job and I didn't have to make these hard decisions? You start to think back to some of the situations where it really wasn't as hard as it is now. But you chose this, and you chose it for a very good reason. You felt like you were supposed to. And you feel like you're made to do it. But not everyone else gets that. The wallpaper on my phone has a quote by Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. It says, "Entrepreneurs must be willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time." Do you get that? That when you're doing something that's abnormal, that's outside of the fray, you're going to be misunderstood. Now, some people will misunderstand it and think, oh, I wish I could do what you did, because I'm sure it's nice and easy and fun, and you don't have to deal with the boss, and you can get paid whatever you want, and they just list all these upsides, but they don't think about the downsides. There are other people that think they're being helpful by giving advice that really doesn't help you. So sometimes I've gotten the advice that I should rewrite my books towards a broader audience. But the thing is, I don't feel like I'm called to write my books to a broader audience. I'm called to help the church. So their advice really isn't all that helpful. Other people think, you're just selfish. You're trying to do this thing by yourself, and you're not thinking of others. That's not true either. You see, I primarily think of others. I'm primarily thinking how I can help the most people. So I'm quite often misunderstood. Now, granted, the people closest to me, they understand me. They don't push back as much. But there are others around that are either trying to be helpful or trying to guide me in ways that are right for most people, but not for me. And those kind of hurt. They hurt because I'm being misunderstood not for what I'm doing, but for how they're perceiving what I'm doing. And that's not right at all. So what I do is I just communicate. So you have to communicate. You have to say, look, this might not be for you. This might not be for your business. This might not be for your situation, but it's who I'm called to reach. I might be in a position where I'm poor most of my life, but I would rather be poor doing what I'm supposed to be doing than rich doing something that I wasn't made to do. So you've got to communicate that. You've got to communicate your core values. For me, the thought that I would go to my grave with regrets, with the thought of, why didn't I ever try that? That is a bigger fear for me than failing. So You've got to communicate. You've got to be honest with people. You've got to share what's really going on, because those that kind of wish they could do what you do, not because they're called to it, but because they've had a hard day of work, or they just fantasize on the upsides without considering the downsides, you really need to tell them, look, here's the situation. I don't always make enough money. When I get up, sometimes I don't know what I'm going to do. Sometimes I'm not even sure that I've made the right decision. But I love what I get to do. And I love being someone who impacts people. So I think that those are ways to diffuse the criticisms that you get. Now there are others. There are other criticisms that are personal and attacking in nature, that don't want good things for you. Remember, I've talked about criticism probably about a year ago on this very show, and criticism isn't helpful. Not when it's not meant to build you up. So you can ignore that. There's nothing in it for you. What I'm talking about is when people want to help, but their help really isn't helpful. When they misunderstand your motives, or they think that they can help you by tweaking what you're doing, when you know the core of what you're doing is the right thing. Maybe the details do need some tweaking, but they're trying to get you to switch the core of what you're doing, then you're being misunderstood. And you should really just get used to it. You're not going to convince everyone that you're right. You're not going to convince everyone that you have the perfect idea of how to proceed. You're just not. But you might find when you communicate clearly, when you're certain of what you're meant to do, that you can still go out and change eternity. Until next time, I'm Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com. Head over to patreon.com/Paul Allen Cliff. That's patreon.com/PaulAllenCliff to support the show. Your support really, really matters. So thank you.